You're listening to She's the Business podcast. Hi, I'm here with Carla Titus. Carla, welcome to She's the Business podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited for our conversation today.
Yes, I am as well. Can you let us know a little bit about who you serve in your business? What is it that you actually do? How do you help them?
Yeah, so we're a fractional CFO firm that's helping growing businesses improve their financial management, outsource it and delegate it out to us so that we can support them on their growth journey, helping them have more cash in the bank, have more profit, and in turn, generating some personal wealth for the owner as well, since, you took a risk, so you should be compensated accordingly. And that also allows them to give back in ways that they feel are helpful in making their own impact in the world in whatever shape, way, or form that is for them. So we're passionate about the numbers. We're passionate about empowering owners with knowledge and closing that knowledge gap around the financial management of business that often is not taught, but somehow business owners are expected to be good at.
Yeah.
And they're frustrated because they don't know what to do about it. And so we want to bring them the tools, processes, and expertise that helps them improve in that area of their business.
Yes, I think that's so true. So many people have that idea or that urge to start a business, and, basically a business is a machine that makes money. And so the finances are an incredibly important part of it, but it's probably like that big surprise, like, oh, I needed to know all of this stuff and I've got no idea about any of it because I'm just focused on what it is that I want to do and how I want to serve people. Yes, it is so important, and it's why it's a great conversation to have. What you mentioned, helping the business owner to actually create their own personal wealth. Yes, please. That is, of course we do business to, follow that purpose, make an impact, and that there is all of that. But of course, we're not doing it just to have a charity and to give all of your time freely and to not have anything for yourself, your family. Absolutely building personal wealth, I'm sure, is a goal of every business owner. And I guess that's why today we're talking about, improving your profit margins, because profit is the thing that gives back to you as the owner, right? That's how your business creates that income for yourself. And maybe you've got some views on that. Is it part of the revenue? Are you paying yourself a salary? There's so many things that we can dive into. So what would you say, how do you see profit in a business as in that way? Like, is that what the owner is getting? Is it should an owner be paid from the business and it be counted as part of the revenue? Like, how do you actually see that in the first place? I'm curious.
Yeah, so there's stages for sure, depending on where you're at in business. When you're first starting, maybe you're paying yourself out of the profits because that's what's left over after you invoice everyone. And then you don't have that many expenses. So it's okay for you to just take out of the profit what you need to take home to budget from. And ideally, you're growing the profits over time, so your business is worth more in the future as well as in the present. And it's also creating this compensation or salary that you are going to live on and you're going to take home for your family's needs to support that. And that might be small. And then over time that continues to grow. And then you maybe bring in some team members and all of a sudden you are having additional expenses. So then you want to start to shift your thinking from profit to what is an owner I need to take home first to make sure I'm compensated well for the efforts I'm putting in. And what do I have left to budget on to bring on additional team members and support that I need as I'm growing? And what I see often happens is people are bringing in bigger expenses than what they can actually afford. And that's what gets them in trouble because then they can't finance that growth because they don't have the right level of cash flow. And that's a different aspect of financial management, but nonetheless, profit should create some cash flow for your business, ideally if you're not spending at all. So having the right budgeting in place is going to be key from a compensation perspective for you as the owner, from a compensation perspective as the team that you're bringing on comes on at the right time that you're able to afford and the right level and not getting too ahead of that too soon where you see profits suffer because you suffocated the business with too much cost and the revenue hasn't grown at the same pace. So there's definitely a lot to manage and why it's complex, but we like to make sure that our business owners are taken care of, because if you're not taking pay from your business, you'll become, resentful of it. You'll be thinking, why am I doing this? Should I just have a job instead that actually was getting paid every month? And we need your business to be that for you first in order for you to then extend it beyond yourself.
Yeah, that's exactly. And it is interesting just because I think often people aren't thinking about it in that way. And so like paying yourself first, there is a book that's called something like that, isn't there? I'm just trying to think what book I'd heard. But anyway, that's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. We're here to talk about that today. So paying yourself first, or figuring out what you're going to be taking from the business. And then, every business has some form of expenses, whether it's even just paying for your website hosting, or often your accountant or bookkeeper. That's kind of like a key one that goes in there for me right at the start, because I just, while I want to be across it all, and I definitely am, there's definitely parts of my time that are better used than doing some of those activities. So yeah, how do you get, I guess some people might find this that, well, what happens first, or when do you decide to make that switch from knowing, well, during the starting years of a business, or maybe however long that period of time is? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, where, you are investing into the business. You may not be drawing a salary. And like you say, maybe you're just taking something from the profits at the end, because the business is still small, you're not bringing in a lot, and you do have some expenses. When is a good time to start thinking, okay, now I need to put myself first and actually be taking that paycheck for myself out of the business, and then figuring out what else I need, and is this viable? I'm interested to hear that. Now I've got some other questions as well.
Yeah, of course. We're happy to answer all of them. It starts with a plan. To be honest, you can't just wing it. You need to be clear on what is your financial plan for the business. And while it might not be a reality today, you need to know what are your revenue goals you're trying to hit every month, so that you can understand what you might be able to afford out of the business. And we might start small. We might pay ourselves $100 a week. You make up the number. It doesn't matter what it is, but it's really the habit of paying yourself that is important to start with, because those good habits will last you a long time. And at first, maybe if you're just starting out, you're putting some of your personal money to fund the business, and there might not be room for you to take a paycheck yet. And that's okay. And then you need to decide until when. At what point will I start paying myself? Because if you're not intentional about it, what happens is, I see clients that are 6-7-figure business owners, they're still not paying themselves. And you're like, how is that even possible? And it's because it did not start with the right behaviors. They put everyone else first, right? They wanted to make sure everyone got paid. They wanted to grow the business. They wanted to reinvest back all the profits. And while that's a choice, by the way, if that's your choice, fantastic. We're just saying be intentional about it. And in order to be intentional, you need to have a financial plan so that you understand what are you doing or not doing. At what point do we want to change what we were doing that's no longer working for us? And at what point do we start collecting that paycheck from the business? Because at some point, the business got to produce enough to cover your costs. Otherwise, like I said, you're just going to keep investing back into the business and pouring back every single dollar you make. And that might get you to fast track growth, but you're going to turn around one day and realize that after you made all that money, there was nothing given to you. And you might become resentful of all the time, effort, and work you put into your business that never gave you something back as a thank you in the form of payment. So being mindful and careful of that. And if you want to make a change, make a plan so that you can make a change towards how you become a cost of your business as well. Because think about it, would anyone come replace you to do your job for free? Ideally not.
No.
Because they don't love it as much as you do. So you need to have a salary line or a paycheck line for someone to do your job one day. But if you never prioritize it, it's going to be a lot harder later.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think the challenge that I see probably people experiencing is they know that they need to invest in order to grow their business, and it's like when to do it. And you did mention just before, bringing on team members obviously is a part of growing any business. Like there's a point and everybody's a little bit different as to how much you can do solo. And I love all the technology and the systems. I'm a massive proponent of all of that, because there's so much that can be done by technology for you, but there does get to a point where you need some support, or it's actually beneficial for you to have some support because you can use your time for higher value activities. You can have somebody doing the stuff that is taking all your time, but not shifting the needle for your business. So it is definitely smart. But you did mention sometimes you can kind of jump the gun too quickly or bring on people too soon.
It happens a lot.
Yeah, definitely. So what do you see happening? Like what is a common mistake there that happens, and how do you know when it is the right time? Because I think it's really easy. Sorry, I'm asking a really long question here. I see so much of this, and I have seen it over the years. It's really easy to get online and all these business forums and see people who are potentially years and years ahead of you, but they're saying, oh, I'm doing this and you have to do that. And people are like, oh, they're saying you've got to do it, so I better do it. And to kind of jump in and think, well, that's what I should be doing. But it's like you're applying somebody's year 5 or 10 strategy to your year 1 business. Well, that's maybe not the right thing to do right now. Like, hold that thought.
Yes.
It's not that it's not right. It's correct, but it may not be right for you right now. So how do you figure out when is the right time? What are you looking at in terms of performance metrics or, I guess, results or health of the business to know what you could do?
So I think you have to start with discerning your stage of business and the advice you're getting. Where's it coming from and from who? And just because it worked for them doesn't mean it'll work for you. It might work differently in your case. You might have a different strategy, different type of business. So there's definitely a lot of caveats, I think, to navigate. And you got to be mindful of, what you're taking in and adapting it for your own situation. And I'm big on that, right? You can listen to all the advice, but then realize what is your situation and how do you want to handle it? Do you want to spend thousands of dollars on that marketing strategy that everybody is doing because it's working for them, because they've already been in business 5 years and they maybe do know who they're selling to, when maybe you're just getting started and might not get as much out of it as someone else who've been doing this for 5 years, right? And experiences a lot of it. But I think a lot of it is right-sizing the investment and really being honest on what you can afford to do versus what you wish you could afford to do. And I think a lot of times you're being told or sold this dream of just put it on a credit card and then the money will come back. And there is no success metrics. There's no tracking on performance on what you expected that investment to do for you. There's no return on investment analysis on if I invest this, I expect Y to happen. And then are you measuring to make sure Y is happening? And if it's not, that you're pivoting and changing the approach. And I see this often because you're just investing with a hope. Again, hope is not a strategy, that things will work out and that will help you create more revenue and that you will have more clients paying you money just because you invested in that one thing. And what we try to do with our clients a lot of the time is guiding them is, what's the in between? Can we do and test it as a minimal investment first? Let's make sure that when we invest that money, that we start to see a glimpse of results, so that we know we're on the right track. Once we know we're on the right track, we can 10x the investment. We can double our investment. We can make sure we're all in on that. But until we see results, we want to be careful at what level and how much we want to invest of our time, effort. And you mentioned something around outsourcing, right? And outsourcing is not about necessarily getting results revenue-wise or profit-wise, but it is time, and time is money. And we want to be mindful of where we're putting our time and effort and make sure that it's aligned with how we're moving the needle in the business to make sure that we're only doing the highest value activities to increase revenue or increase profit in our business, or again, save some time away from the day-to-day by outsourcing the bookkeeping or having an assistant book all your calendar stuff or do your email for you, so you have more free time to go do the business development activities or the sales calls or whatever it is that you need to do to move the business forward and grow it faster. And that right there, when you're just starting, you probably have more time than you have money anyway. So you might as well do that and try to outsource what you can afford. And you don't have to start with a full-time person, that's on a salary. You could start with 5 hours of a VA's time to just get some things off your plate, just enough that you can get some momentum going in your business to offset that cost with a win in revenue.
Yeah, definitely. And, I think from a perspective of somebody who comes from that marketing background, I think this is like, oh my goodness, it's such a can of worms when you start looking at time and money invested in marketing. It is absolutely important. Yes, you do need to be doing it. But one of the big traps that I see so many people falling into is just the amount of stuff that they're doing, all these different things. They're following all of these high intensity strategies. And it's like, wow, you're putting in so much time and effort, and for what return? And you don't even know whether that is right for your business. How is it linked to anything else? So I see they're then going, oh, I need to hire a VA to help me with this. And so it kind of just spirals from there. And it all can make logical sense, I guess, because they think they're following a system or a process that someone's had, and this is what you've got to do. But like you said, it's almost like, are you doing the things that are right for you at your stage of business? And what I really think is so important, as you mentioned, that understanding at the stage of business you're at, it may not need to be that complicated. It may not need to be that intensive. And usually, like 99% of the time, I'd say they're doing way more, or at a much higher level than what's actually needed for the business and the size that they're at right now. So claiming back that time is so important, like you said. I'm curious to understand, because I think, once you are at that point where you're bringing on VAs and it's not just like quick help someone take something off my plate, but you're actually developing roles in your business, and you've got that choice of, well, do I continue working with a VA, or do I actually bring someone into the business on salary? That's a big step. Like, there's a big shift, I think, that
Big
happens
decision.
from then. What are the pros and cons of having salaried employees versus, somebody who's on an hourly contracted rate, like you would have with a VA type of outsource
Yeah.
arrangement?
I think one is flexibility, and then also fractional costs, right? Because you no longer have to come up with someone's full-time salary to work for you. You're also not responsible for someone's livelihood if this is their only job. Ideally, when you're contracting, they're working for other clients as well. So, if something happens to your business and you can't hire them anymore, they're not going to be suffering. They can just go find another client. Where if it's someone that you brought into the business, you want to take that responsibility seriously, and you want to prepare from a cash flow perspective ahead of time to have at least a 3-month runway of their salary in case anything happens in the business. Then you're not worried about making payroll, because it's a much bigger decision. And also thinking about, do I need that much help right now? Right? This role merit a full-time position is so fantastic. Let's prepare financially to make sure we're ready for that, and that we have clear onboarding training and measuring success for that role to ensure that they are doing a good job and that we're getting the return on investment from that particular role. But it doesn't just happen because we wanted to. We have to prepare financially ahead of time and be ready to go. And I think what happens is, what we've seen often is we grow the contractor role over time, slowly, from 5 to 15 hours to maybe 20 hours. And then you realize, maybe I can consolidate 2 positions that I was contracting out to one person that can come in-house to help own that. And we know that also employees tend to commit at a different level, right? Your contractors, they have other clients. You might only have them for so long and so much helping support you, and they're invested in you as a client and supporting you. But there might be a time where you need more control or oversight of the role, and when they show up to work and when they do the work and how they do the work. And that's when you want to be considering whether or not you need to make a change. But you'll see it become obvious that, maybe you're frustrated and you need a little bit more than what the team member is able to provide. And just be mindful of that, and knowing that that might be coming. You can then set up that path to save the money you need in order to bring someone on payroll. Because it's not just the cost that you're paying for them. It's also the payroll taxes, the benefits, running payroll. There's all this other inherent cost, maybe even software tools that now you have a new user you have to add to, where before those were covered by the contractor externally. So you didn't see those costs, right? Maybe buying a laptop for that person. And so making sure you have a plan that comprehends all those variables of cost included into it, so you know what is the total compensation cost of bringing that person in, will make you sleep better at night and feel at ease when you are ready to bring that role in.
So true. There is so much more responsibility responsibility that comes along with bringing someone in-house into your business. And it's not purely just about, what you might be paying them. There's all of those other things that go with it, because really, as an employer, there's a totally different level of expectation there. And, I think there's so many amazing benefits, and really bringing that person in, and, that they are not exactly the same as you. I don't think anyone will ever have that same drive and vision for your business, but an employee who's really truly in-house is going to have a much higher level of commitment and attachment to your business and to their success than, somebody who's a contractor. But like you say, it's so beneficial to have that flexibility when you're growing a business. And, you just think, well, while it's growing and while things are changing so quickly and swiftly, having the flexibility of that outsourced arrangement actually works so much in your favor, because, there are options and you're not locked into something. It's a far, easier thing to manage, I think, until you get to that point. And like you say, I think you'll know when you're there, right? When you get to the point where it's like, now it makes sense to bring someone inside, in the business. So that's great. Thank you so much for talking about that. I wanted to go back to, I guess, the profit margins, and, I'd love to ask you about what you see the difference between people who've sort of set a profit, but they're struggling to reach it. What is it? What are some of the key things that they're missing in that, even though they might have a target number in mind? Where do you see people are maybe not realizing that they've missed something, or what are they doing that's preventing them reaching that number?
Well, they might have a profit target, but they don't have a financial plan. So they don't know what their monthly revenue goals are. They don't know what their cost is currently. And they also think they have no control over it. And that is the biggest piece of it all, is that you have full control of it. You're making decisions every day about what you're spending your money on, and you can choose to stop if you want to. There's consequences. Don't get me wrong. You can't just cut everything down and then pretend like nothing's going to happen. But you chose to sign up for that tool. You chose to hire that coach. You chose to rent space for your office. Like, these are decisions you made. Whether or not you understood the consequences of those decisions, that's different, which I understand sometimes people don't connect the dots. And that's the work that we do normally, is we connect the dots for them. They say, well, I should get an office and I need to have 4 people in it and I have to pay for parking spots. And I'm like, this is a decision you're making. What if we were to just stay virtual? Is that an option? Like, you get to make those decisions that are right or wrong for your business. That's up to you, right? It's your business. But we tell you what are the financial consequences or implications of those decisions when you're making them before you make them. So we run the numbers and say, by the way, that decision is going to cost you X. Are we ready to take on that cost? Or for example, when you sign up for that software for a year, but you used it for 1 month. You chose to pay for a year, even though you had no idea if you're actually going to use the software for a year. You're like, yeah, I'm all in. Let's just do it because they give me a discount, right? So they always get you with that. And then you never used it, you never implemented, or you never rolled it out to your team. You don't like it because you tried it for 1 week and you're like, oh no, this is not for us. So instead, why don't you just pay for 1 month, try it, and then sign up for the year once you're in love with it and you know you're going to fully use it all the time and squeeze the juice out of it. And I see this often with companies. They're trying the latest and greatest. They add another software that does the same thing that the last 3 softwares they bought is doing, or they're hiring that yet another business coach that's going to solve all their problems. And their problem really is like they're not taking action. So they think that, the coach and the accountability will make them do the work. And it's that they're not doing the work. And so sometimes is some of those decisions that we're making on a day-to-day basis that add up to a lot of costs that we're seeing in our business. And what we do is we normally revisit our costs quarterly or twice a year to say, is this serving me the purpose still? Is this have the ROI for the business still? Because things change too. You might have thought 6 months ago things were differently and you needed that thing, and now you no longer need it because you need a better software or a better, upgrade version of something. Maybe it's even like a better coach, right? You maybe exceeded all your goals and the coach was really good and got you here, but they might not be the coach for the next phase. So you got to be able to assess and rethink about those decisions and make sure you're making change. And the other piece I see is people are not pricing right and people are not growing revenue, right? So they're not creating offers that people want. They're not solving problems. They're not adding value. And therefore people is not wanting to pay for it or not wanting to work with them. And going back to your offers and making sure, is this still resonating with my ideal client? Are they still getting the value from it? Do they see the ROI in their own investment in our services? And then am I pricing right? Right. And right could be a lot of things because the environment changes all the time. You have competition. You have people doing it faster, better, and for less money than you are. So how are you differentiating yourself to make sure that you stay relevant and that your clients continue to see the value in what you do for them?
Yeah, absolutely. And that is so true. I think things can become just part of what you do, right? Especially with software, it's like you signed up for it, a couple of years down the track, here you are still paying that, that monthly fee. And like you said, is this something that you've now embedded in your business? Can you pay annually and save? Or is this something that you're not even using much anymore, or your priorities have changed? And yeah, I remember going through this process years back where I realized I was like, my website itself was cheap, but it was like all of the plugins and all of the integrations and all these different platforms. And I'm like, oh my God, I've gone crazy because I'm trying to provide a great service to people engaging with me. I want things to be instant. I want them to get an instant response and it to be personalized and all of these things that make a good experience. And yeah, you can do it all right. But I was like, it's gone completely bonkers with the amount of different plugins. And then they were all conflicting with each other. And I was like, that's it. I did this, it was a big decision. And I invested in a platform that was not the cheapest, but it was replacing about 5 of the things I was already using. And I was like, it actually works out cheaper than what I'm paying separately for all these other ones. Even though the cost seemed higher, it was a saving to do that. And you've got to also factor in the migration of everything, because it's not like you flick a switch and like, bang, now all my stuff's on the new one. These decisions that you say, you do have to kind of, think about it. And I love what you said before about asking those questions. Is this still serving me? Is this part of the plan? Is this going to actually help me achieve my goals? And, one of the things, as you said, your offers, that's obviously an area I love to help my clients with, because I see so often what happens, the reason why you get to this place where you've got offers that aren't serving you anymore is simply evolution. Like, you've evolved. Like you said, the world around you has evolved, the market has evolved, people have become more savvy. There's just a collective amount of education that goes on out there, and what people think now is different to before. But I find that a lot of the time you've kind of had these things that you created once, and then they're just still sitting there. They're like dead weight, or they're not doing anything for you. They're not profitable. And when people are doing them, it's taking so much of your time and resource. It's actually taking you away from selling the things that are profitable, that are your, the revenue generators really, and what they should be. And it's because there's this like attachment, I think, to what you've created before and not wanting to let it go, right? It's just still sitting there. And I think it's one of the most cleansing things to go, okay, is this part of your future vision? Does this thing that you've been offering for however many years you've been offering it now, but does this fit in your future vision? And so often the answer is no, I'm just doing it because I have clients. And I'm like, could somebody else do it? Could you, refer that on to someone who actually wants to do that? You're only doing it because your clients want you to. You don't even want to do it anymore. It's like that moment where they go, oh my goodness, now I see why I've plateaued for so long. It's because I'm just serving this thing that someone else wants, and I'm doing it the same way I've been doing for years. And and there isn't room for growth in some of those things. But when you offshoot it to someone who actually runs it as a business, they obviously can do things like systemize it and cut, and make it profitable for them in their business model. But in your business model, it may not be a fit anymore. So, thank you for bringing that up, because I think that's so important and such a big factor in it.
Yeah, if it's not lighting you up, we always say we want to reconsider and see how can we make it more enjoyable again, or change it, or let go of it. But also like the profitable piece that you mentioned, right? Sometimes we're serving clients in a way that is not profitable, and we're not taking the time to evaluate that. And then you're surprised why you're not making money or you're losing money every month. It's because you're paying people to work with you. And that is not the way we want that to
Yes.
go. So revisiting pricing and revisiting maybe how much time you're spending on an offer and making sure it's priced accordingly. The other thing people don't adjust for, which is shocking to me, it's inflation. Like, we experience it all the time. Just because it's not in the news, when it's super high,
Yeah.
doesn't mean it's not happening. So like, if your prices are not going up every year, you're already behind, and you got to consider, do I have the margin to, take that inflation into account already in what I'm charging, or do I need to increase prices because of just inflation and cost of living? Everything costs more anyways. And I find that often, clients forget to increase their rates. And we're not saying like crazy double your rates, but just increase it enough that it feels like you're able to keep up at least with cost of living and inflation in general. And so you need to be revisiting pricing every 6 to 12 months, because you also don't know if the competition is, doing something that might impact you being able to get clients at your price point. So you need to be aware as well.
Yeah, exactly. And like, just to add on to that, one of the reasons why people feel like they have to stay where they are is usually because they're applying the current context of who they're serving. And they're like, well, they're not going to pay anymore. If I increase my rates, I won't get clients. And I'm always like, yeah, but you're thinking only about those people that you're currently serving. What about, you've been doing this for however long. Are you even valuing your expertise? Are you even like really understanding what you could be offering and serve at a higher level? Because there's a whole group of people out there who are probably paying somebody else double, maybe even more than what you're charging for the same thing. But it's really, it's not because we're not paying for the nuts and bolts of it. It's not like, well, here's a cup and then here's another one, and one's worth $1 and one's worth 20 or whatever. It's like they both have the same function. They're both a cup to hold water in. One's crystal and one's just cheap glass. But it's like, it's the outcome that they're wanting. It's the quality, it's the value. And, and that is interesting for so many people, because I think we so get stuck in the context of the past and of what has been and who is there in front of them. And they're not even seeing, there's other, I could actually shift and then be available for a whole new group of people who are ready for something at a higher level, or just that depth of your experience and expertise. So, yes.
Yeah. People discount their experience, even the recent experience. Maybe they were saying, I have 10 years of X experience, and they forget that they've been doing this consulting for 5 extra years. And they're not accounting for that because their prices reflect the 10 years of experience they had, not the 15 years. And so they're not realizing that all of that experience they've gained in the last 5 years is super valuable, and someone is willing to pay for that. And so their prices should reflect that as well. And you should be comparing to people who have 15 years of experience doing the same thing that you do and see how much they are charging. And you'll be shocked. Sometimes it's way more than you thought. And sometimes it's not. Maybe you're in alignment, maybe 5 years didn't make a huge difference, and that's okay. But data is powerful. We always say you want to go validate, you want to go look at the data so you can make better informed decisions. And that's what this is all about. That's why we look at our numbers to tell us what might be working well and what's not working well, so we can make changes and then take a different course of action going forward.
Excellent. Now, when we're talking to, and I think, women obviously have trouble with that. I think it's always that looking for the external to help validate your worth. And, obviously you really help people just to step into that and see the value. When you're helping them to actually become wealthy through their business, what are some of the factors that you look at? What does that even look like? How do you help them to use their business as a vehicle to build their personal wealth?
Yeah. So we definitely want to be targeting certain profitability in the business. And if that's not happening today, we have a plan that we're crafting for over the next 3, 6, or 12 months to change that course. And that starts with, evaluating costs, making sure we're not paying for things we don't need, increasing revenue, looking at pricing, looking at compensation structures. If that's something, where you have a team member or several team members, you need to compensate accordingly. And we're looking strategically through that growth plan so that we can then decide what our new profit is going to be going forward. So we're not stuck in what it was. We're like, oh, we've been able to do that. Wonderful. And that served us. But if we want to generate more wealth from our business, we're going to need to do something a little bit different going forward. And that going forward is so key, because when you put that financial plan in place, that you say, I'm going to work with 10 clients at X price, and that's going to create a 20% revenue increase, and I'm going to keep my costs steady or lower. Now we created the room for profit. And that's what we're looking to do with clients. Strategically think about, how do we, either maximize cost. Sometimes it's investing more, actually, which is surprising to people, that sometimes we want to put more money behind certain things in order to generate the clients we need, that then creates the room for profit as well. So it's not always about cutting back, just so you know. We're not that kind of CFO. Sometimes it's, what opportunities do we want to invest in order to generate more, so we have more room for additional profit. And then once we create the profit, it's not just sitting on that money in the bank account or not doing anything. It's really thinking about 50% might be an opportunity fund for the business, because we don't want to deplete the business of resources, by the way. So I'm not an advocate of taking 100% of the profit out of the business. Ideally, you're keeping some of it in there. And if you could do 50-50, where you take 50 for yourself and 50 for the business to stay in business, then that 50% that you take home becomes a way to fund your retirement. It becomes to fund maybe some passive investing activities, or anything that you or your family, it could be like the vacation you always wanted to take, because sometimes recharging is the best way to, grow a business. And making sure that you're taken care of through the business profit, and making sure that that profit lasts you for a long time, either through investing or doing whatever, makes sense for your personal financial plan. Maybe it's buying the house you wanted to buy, or, paying for the private school, whatever it is that, or maybe giving back more to the community. Like, I have a lot of clients that love to impact the world positively, and now they have the money to do so because they have more profit. So if that's, the kind of things you want to do, now you have the freedom to do it, because you actually created more profit that gives you possibilities and opportunities to invest in ways that you couldn't before. So that's why we are so focused on generating more profit from the business, so as a wealth generating vehicle.
Yeah. Excellent. And that makes total sense. I think there's just so much in the ability to look at your numbers, and like you said, the profit, part of it stays in the business and helps you to invest and grow the business. But you did mention sometimes it's actually about investing in order to grow the profit. And what sort of came to mind to me was ads, because I think a lot of the time people see ads as an expense, and yes, you do spend on ads, but if you're putting in, say, $10, and a lead that you gain from that ad is actually worth $30 to you, then you're putting in 10, but you're pulling out 20, or you kind of want that margin to get even bigger, right? So then the ads are not really an expense, but more of an investment in order to be able to grow more, because you're using that expenditure on ads to generate more outcome, meaning more revenue and profit at the end of the day. Do you have any views and takes on things like that with ads?
We have another hour here too. No, we don't. That's okay. I'll just give you the short version. So I think that the key here is measuring performance, right? And I think that's often what I don't see business owners doing, is they have no idea what their ad spend is doing for them. They have no idea how to target it correctly to generate the results that they want and need, because maybe they're not working with the right person, or the person that's doing them doesn't have the knowledge. And I see it often, and they go into this investment of, let's say, $10 a day, right, on ads, without a clear expectation of what they should get out of it. They don't know if it's 100 views, if it's one paying client, like you mentioned, that, brought $30 instead of the 10 that they spend, which is fantastic, right? Especially if they stay on a lot longer than the first purchase. They have no idea. They just go in and throw spaghetti at the wall and put $10 a day and say, hope and pray something will happen and come out of this, and we'll have money on the other side of it. But they don't know how it translates to money in the bank. And that's where I think we're not doing ourselves any favors if we're not looking at the data. Analyze your marketing spend. Analyze how many paying customers came out of those campaigns, for how long. How long did that take to convert? Was it 30 days? Was it 90 days? Was it 12 months before you saw results? and measure that and make sure that the return on investment on that calculation is still net positive and that you're not just throwing money at something that is not working. Ideally, it's working. You're seeing the new clients come in and pay you. So you're seeing that money come back, and then you can invest a portion of that back into more ads that then generate more clients that are paying. And again, we now are just reinvesting back the new gains versus having to pull out of our pocket initially to take care of that cost of ads. Because, at first it is going to be a cost, but it's an investment long term on what we might see come return.
Yeah, exactly. And, you did say it is all about knowing your numbers. And, I think that explaining the numbers that I just threw at you before, the cost per lead is obviously a really important number to know, if you're doing ads. An ad isn't, and this is, I think, something a lot of people misconstrue, is like, I put money into ads and out pops clients. It's like, no, an ad is actually like,
that's not how that works.
It doesn't quite work like that. Like you're amplifying something in your business. So you've got a process for bringing in leads and clients. So where do you want the volume to come in? Is it right at the top end into the audience, and then you've got something already that works to generate leads and sales from that? Or do you actually want to generate leads and people onto your list? Like, where do you need the volume? You put the ad spend behind that, but you've got to know, what is your cost per lead, and then what is your earnings per lead, not how much are they worth as a client. So you might have a client that's worth, $3,000-$4,000, whatever it is that you're charging, and your cost per lead is 10. And you might think, well, that sounds great. But it's like, yes, but how many leads do you need in order to get that one client? And that's where your your earnings per lead comes in, right? So breaking down, right, I'm going to earn X amount from one client, but it took me however many leads to get that one client. So it might take, depending on your conversion rate, it may take 80 leads. It might take 50. It might take 20.
Yeah.
It depends on what your conversion rate is to get your one client. So you're calculating that based on, right, how many leads do I need in order to generate that? Therefore, what is my earnings per lead? And you want your earnings per lead to be higher than your cost per lead. Otherwise, it's not profitable to run the ads. And then you'd be like, right, you need to look at that ad strategy, right, to see what is going on, and where do you need to fix it? Because, you always want that number to be bigger. Like you said, I mean, it just is so much about knowing your numbers, and it can be fun. I'm just going to say, as somebody who's creative, and, I did do an accounting paper at university, but it was like pulling teeth. That wasn't not my favorite thing. But, like, even when you're creative, it can be fun to know your numbers. And it's actually just about getting, not afraid of them, and having some key metrics that you're like, right, if I'm going to run ads, these are the ones that I need to track and look at. And then it's fun to see, how can I improve that metric? How can I improve the click-through rate?
Exactly.
How can I improve the conversion rate? How can I improve the cost per lead and bring that down? How can I make the earning per lead higher? And that's sort of, I guess, where you're helping to guide people as well on, right, this is going to make a good investment for you. Now that you've got those numbers in a good place, you can put more spend in because you know what you're going to get out the back end.
Yeah. I mean, that conversion is so key, right? And I think a lot of people are not measuring that. If it takes 100 people and you're spending $10 a day to get in front of those 100 people where only one converts, that might be wonderful. It might be not good enough. So it depends on your type of business, right? So knowing what that is. But also we talk a lot about progress around here, financially speaking, because it can be really easy to be discouraged. You're like, oh, I'm not making money, or like, this is not working. And the goal is progress. Like, are you improving towards your goal? Are you making progress towards the goal that you set, or are you going backwards? And that's okay. Sometimes it happens, right? 10 steps back to go 2 steps forward. It happens. In business, like, we've seen it all. And exactly. But it's really measuring that progress so that you know where you're at on tracking to your goal. And it's not about perfection. It's not about your numbers always being pretty and awesome. Like, everybody has had negative months, right? And a lot of people have had positive months. And it happens because in business, a lot of things are not constant and we have fluctuation, and that's okay as long as we know how to manage through those ups and downs and make sure that we know at the end of the day, are we making progress? Yes or no? So that we can clearly answer, are we better off?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, like you said, there are those fluctuations. So with your business, should you be you want to be tracking your numbers all the time, but do you then review them on a monthly basis or on a quarterly basis? Because maybe you have sort of fluctuations from month to month and you might go, oh my goodness, it's like we've had a terrible month. But then in the quarter overall, it's actually really good, right? So I
Yes.
guess that's where your planning is coming into it and helping people to say, like, here's where you should be doing the big checkpoints or making decisions from. Because if you're making decisions on that monthly basis, but you've got a very fluctuating business month to month, you might make some rash decisions that you're actually doing really well. It's just that you were looking at it in too small a container or window.
Yeah. And sometimes it's even seasonal yearly and depends on the business. You might have a big season, in the summer and then have really dead winter months. And if you don't look at it from a, comparison year over year, you might feel very discouraged during the winter season. And you want to make sure oh, wait, this happens every year for the last 3 years. This is not something new. And also then we're going to budget accordingly and save our money in the summer when we're doing really, really good, not spend it all so that we can get through the winter onto the next spring or summer season. But if you don't look at your numbers, you wouldn't know that. And your numbers are telling that story, and reading that, and understanding those trends and how your numbers behave also will give you some good insights. But also that doesn't mean you can't create a new future. And that's where we want to focus our attention, is that future looking, future planning, proactively taking control of what you want to see going forward. That's going to get you out of just accepting whatever results come your way.
Yes. So true. Now, do you have any final, piece of advice or something that you just feel really called to share with the audience today? Wrapping up what we've said, there's been so many really important, I think, takeaways from this for people to think about and to ask themselves, really, am I tracking the numbers? Do I know this? Am I, what is the status right now in your business? What would you like to leave us with?
Yeah, I think it can be overwhelming. That's why, we have jobs here to help support clients in this way. But if you're in your business and you're not sure where to start, I would recommend, and I know this is going to be a hard step for a lot of you, but I know you're going to be scared at first, but pull your monthly reporting from your accounting software and look at what was your revenue, what were your costs, and what was your profit. And if it's a loss, that's okay. We're not judging our results. We are just going to objectively look at the numbers and then review them so that we are aware of where we're at, so that we're not trying to make up stories of how bad it is or how good it is. And then we have no idea what's actually happening.
Yeah.
And then go do that cost audit I talked about. Go look through the lines. What are you spending money on? Is it still bringing you a return? And then make a plan. How are you going to grow your business? What clients, what things are you going to do from a marketing perspective? Are you going to invest in ads? What is it that you're going to budget for that growth opportunity piece? Because that will change everything in your business. It's funny because I was doing this exercise for myself because, I tell my clients all the time to do it, and I do it for them and I guide them through it. But sometimes I forget to take a moment to do my own. And let's be honest, like that happens. And I was looking and I realized I wasn't investing nearly enough in marketing or training and development compared to last year. And I told myself, well, that's the problem. That's why we're not growing as fast as we want to, because we have not invested enough in marketing, enough in training. So what did I do? I took that information and now I'm on the path to invest more in marketing. And I set a budget. Of course, we're not just, throwing everything that we have, but we're going to reinvest some of our profit back into marketing. And we're going to reinvest some of our profit in training and development for myself as a leader to make sure that I'm able to show up differently for this next stage of growth we're about to experience. And that didn't happen by accident. That was me reviewing my numbers, looking at what I know has worked well before and where my gaps might be and opportunities for me to invest some of the profits of the business back, and making sure that we allocate and take action to allocate those funds back into the business in that way. So it's much more than just looking at the numbers, but the numbers will start to tell you where are some of the gaps and where you might need to do things differently going forward in order to be able to see better results.
Yes, I can so see how when you were able to look at the numbers and see the difference, being able to make that decision, like a really empowered decision to reinvest into marketing and training for yourself, it makes total sense. And you can see that that's, you were able to diagnose, well, that's the cause of what's happening right now in the business. And here's a really obvious and clear solution. So then you can move forward and, what power that comes from that clarity, because you stop second guessing, you stop thinking whatever's going on in your head, all of the monkey chatter, like, oh, this, it must be this, or, you know, whatever things are popping in that may not actually be the case at all. So yeah, I think that's such a great thing, a takeaway story. Thank you so much for sharing that one, Carla. It's beautiful. Now, if anyone wants to connect with you on social media, reach out and learn a bit more about what you actually do, where can they best find you?
Yeah, they're welcome to visit our website at wealthworthwithin.com. There's a Let's Connect or contact page where you can book a call if you're ready to hire a fractional CFO or want to hear more about how we might be able to support you to outsource the financial management of your business. And maybe you're feeling like your accountant or bookkeeper is not having this kind of conversations with you. It's because you actually need a CFO. So make sure you reach out. If you're not ready to hire us, you can sign up for our newsletter. We offer a ton of educational free content for anyone out there that's trying to just get better at financial management in their business. We're passionate about closing that knowledge gap. And you can also follow us on social media at Wealth Worth Within. Give us a thumbs up. Let us know what's going on in your world. We love to hear from you and what kind of content you want to continue to see. We have a lot already out there, but we create new content every time, and we'd love to hear what would be helpful to you.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. We'll make sure all those links are in the show notes. So scroll down, go and find Carla and connect with her on your platform of choice. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time, Carla, with us today, because you know, it's an important conversation, and I think you've really brought some new and really healthy perspectives in for us to have a think about.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I hope your audience enjoys it and lets us know that they listened to the episode and took some action, which is more important than anything.
Yes, exactly. No, please do. You know, if you've listened to the episode, please tag us. Go and post it in your stories. Take a screenshot of it and tag us both and let us know what was a moment for you, or an aha, or something that you're now committing to do. Like you said, commit to the action. What is it that you're committing to do as the CEO of your business? Even if it is just you, you're still CEO, because guess what? You're wearing all the hats right now, but you may not be one day. But it is important to make sure that you are taking that time to do the CEO activities, such as knowing your numbers and your finances. Thank you, Carla. This was beautiful, and we'll talk again soon. Now, before you go, before you head off, I've got something really exciting to share with you. Now, every year I host a live workshop inside my Business Jam program. That is a specific workshop on finding your niche and your ideal client. It is the Expert Zone Express workshop. We literally get it done in about 2 hours, because I do quite a lot of coaching and feedback during the session. You come in, join me live, go through the steps to identify where is your expert zone in your market niche, so that you can stand out with authority and attract the right clients. And it's happening again in February. So this month, it's coming up on Wednesday, the 26th. That is in Australian time. And I've decided this year I'm actually going to open it up with a live invitation for other people to come and join us. So it doesn't matter if you're not currently a client. If you would like to come and join me for the Expert Zone Express workshop and finally nail your niche, like really nail it, get that expert zone defined, know exactly who you're speaking to, then this is the workshop for you. So to get all the details and to register and grab your seat, head to jessicaosborn.com/workshop. I will hook that up in the show notes for you, so you can scroll down, click on the link, go through and jump in and get a seat now. I don't know how many I'm going to make available, so if you see them, they're still available, it means that there is still space for you. But please don't hang around, because I'm not going to have it open-ended. I do have a limit on the number of people that can attend. I will be watching registration, so it's just open for first and best dressed. I would love to have you there, and we can kick off your year with really great clarity, confidence, so that you can show up with that confidence and really be the authority, the go-to person in your niche. So once again, head to jessicaosborn.com/workshop and you'll find all the details and how to get your seat and register. Talk to you then. Bye.